Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 11 Hours Apart, a ChiLynn podcast. And here with you guys is, as always, two of us. And she's Leah.
And he's Chi. Welcome.
Welcome.
One and all.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about another Miyazaki anime that Leah had not seen before, which is Princess Mononoke. Yeah, this is the one that I think a while ago I think we probably like ranked. Well, I really like this one, but it's not like one. It's not my top. I had two others that I like more, but this one's like a very close behind those two. I like this one very much. But Leah, it's your first time seeing it, so how did you feel about it?
I really liked it a lot. Yeah, so we watched, as part of this podcast, we watched Spirited Away and Nausicaa, and the Valley of the Wind.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one, Princess Mononoke.
No, we also watched My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh, My Neighbor Totoro. That's right. Thank you. So which are the two that you would rank above?
Oh no, actually that three was my favorites.
Those three
that
were
three, yeah. The ones that we've watched already are the ones that I love the most. But like I said before, this one is not. This is like my very, very, very close behind that three. Yeah.
Okay. And I didn't get a chance to do this yet, but I did notice that Princess Mononoke came out in 1997, and I can't remember when those other three came out, but I would be interested to know like which one was the oldest versus the newest one.
Oh, I can tell you. I think Nausicaa was the oldest, and then followed by My Neighbor Totoro, and then this one actually, Princess Mononoke, and then I think The Spirited Away came out after this.
Okay. Yeah, I liked this one. I don't know. I liked it a lot. And I think I liked some of the visual aesthetics in this one. I really like wolves. So to get to see the wolves, like I really like that. And I know like as a kid, as I'm watching these, sometimes I'm like, man, I really wish I watched these when I was younger, when I was like still a kid, because I wonder how I would have responded to it as a child. Although this one I am going to watch these again sometime, all of them, because a couple of them, including this one, I watched on HBO Max. And the default for HBO Max when you play it does the dubbed version, the dubbed English version, rather than doing the subtitles. And I really want to go back and watch this one, and I think it was Spirited Away was the other one, or maybe it was My Neighbor Totoro also, with the original audio, but with the English subtitles, because I do think like the voices being different and stuff probably changes certain things about it. But where I was going with that is this one I thought was interesting because I think it had more, like there were definitely in the English version, like a number of cuss words, like, and some of the like violence in it, I felt like was more severe than like the other three that we watched. So I was almost like, this is still an anime, but it's a little more mature in some ways, like the story is, and so maybe it wouldn't have been good for me to watch as a child. I don't know, but
yeah, probably not as a child, like a teenager. I think it's the appropriate age to watch this. Yeah, because there are some like people being killed. Well, it was brief, like the the violence you mentioned. It was like at the beginning where that was really just sort of you see people die, and then
Well,
that
yeah,
was.
there were multiple like
Oh yeah,
heads
yeah, yeah,
chopped
yeah, yeah,
off,
exactly,
arms
yeah, yeah.
chopped
But it was only
off.
that was like only that section had that, and then after that it was a more like a fantastical violence, which is also violence, but it's not as I guess traumatizing. Would be as traumatizing to kids as like a
I don't
human
know, like
something.
seeing all the pigs dead at the end and then all the people that also died, like they showed that. Like it was kind of like watching The Lion King, except for instead of it being like the elephant graveyard, like the elephant bodies were still there, or like also
Mhm.
it was reminding me of like the very end of The Lion King when like the fire dies down and the rain starts to come, and it was almost like as if at the end of The Lion King they just had like dead lions like lying there and like dead hyenas like everywhere. Like they don't, in Disney movies they don't do that. So it's just like
Yeah.
I just, as a really young kid, that probably would have actually been like kind of affected me, actually seeing that, because they don't show that stuff in like
Oh yeah, I mean,
American
yeah, Disney,
children
yeah, Disney's like known for,
animated.
yeah, is famous for that. Well, but yeah, I think the most frightening part is probably like the uh like the boar has gone mad, like the first one, like
Yeah,
the white boar. Yeah, I remember
yeah,
when I watched it.
that was
I
scary
don't think I was a
too.
teenager, but I was not like a child at all. But I remember being very sort of impacted by like how the way that the boar had gone mad, and like all the like the physical manifestation of that. I thought it was,
Mhm.
I wasn't like traumatized, I wasn't like scared, but I was very sort of, wow, that was a very powerful like imagery to show that
Yeah,
when people, humans have violated the law of nature, and then you anger the sort of the spirits of nature, right? Because that's what those like animals represented. That's their anger, in physical form. And because like I think this movie was in the same, pretty much in the same vein as Nausicaa. It portrays the same story, which is basically humans that don't respect the nature, and the nature would just like they would just fight back, and be
yeah,
angry. But in Nausicaa, it was like a sea of like this worms, right? Like you know, and like they look mad, but it wasn't twisted. Like their form wasn't like twisted. It just like they all have glowing red eyes, signifying that they're angry. But in this movie, all the the animal lords that had gone mad, they all have this thing growing out of them. Um,
hmm,
so I feel like this movie was sort of okay. Well, let me take a step even further down the line of Nausicaa, down the line of the conflict between humans and nature,
hmm.
and how angry nature would be if nature has personality. Let's just take that one step further, and just, yeah. I think that's this, which I think is genius. Actually, I think that was a very, very, um, considering like he came up with the story and all the imagery and all that. I thought it was really effective. Yeah.
I think I liked this one better than Nausicaa,
Hmm.
but probably because I do have, and this is a personal preference thing. Here's what I appreciate about um Miyazaki is that he is so creative, like with the some of the creatures he creates, and like, in this movie, for example, the little tree spirits, like they're just
Yeah.
so he's so creative. He like makes these things up, and like even the 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 main tree spirit, is that what they called it, that or the forest spirit or whatever, that is it looks like a mixture between like a baboon and then a deer of some sort, but it has like the feet of like a bird, I think. I
Mhm.
don't know, it's just like very like something you've never seen before, and then he transforms at night into this like beautiful, well, I thought it was beautiful the first time you saw it, was he turns into this like magical being at night. And um that was like, I was thinking as I was watching that, I was like, man, this is so creative, like who comes up with these like
Yeah.
creatures and like what they're gonna look like? That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I have this thing where I have this personal preference, and this is just for me personally, and I can appreciate the creativity, but I love seeing, like, the reason why I like the wolves in this movie is because they look like actual wolves, but animated, and
Mhm.
I like that. Like, that's my favorite. I love animals looking the way that they're kind of supposed to look. And so I liked in this movie the wolves, the deer that um the the prince rides in this movie, and then the even the monkeys in the trees. Like the first time you see them, they look different, but then when you see them later, they look like actual like apes, or like gorillas almost. And I don't know, so like I like seeing that, like the more realistic looking ones that are like based in reality. um and so that's probably why I like this one better a little bit, is because I connect with those characters more. Oh, and I didn't mention the pigs or the boars. Like they also look pretty much like what
Mhm.
wild boars look like. And um, I don't know. I just like, I think this one had more of that than Nausicaa had. Like Nausicaa was like very mad. Every creature was magical and different and not really like similar to an actual
Yeah.
animal.
And also it was mostly just insects, I think, in
Yeah,
Nausicaa.
yeah, it
Like
was
we
a
don't,
lot of,
yeah, like
yeah.
we don't really see like mammals being featured. But there was a bird that the people, like the boy and this older like hunter guy rode. But yeah, like mammals are not like a part of the fauna in the Nausicaa. And I think, yeah, insects are just, I guess, for me, they're not as charming. And they don't have like, they're just like a backdrop, right? Like they're not these insects, they're not characters, except for the,
Right.
even like the worm, even like the worm, they're not really, they don't have like individual personality. They're just like, a force of nature, basically. Yeah, but
Yeah.
like in this movie, boars talk, wolves talk. Yeah, like it was more like front and center in terms of
Mhm.
characters. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I actually I do like this one a lot. I do.
Yeah, I really, I think visually I liked it. Because of what I just described, like I
Mhm.
do like that some of the animals that were in it, or some of the creatures that were in it, were based on like real world animals.
Yeah.
Like I like having a little bit of that tie to the real world, rather than it being like completely
Hmm.
separate. I say that, and then it's like I'm also a huge Star Wars fan, which is like not like that. So that's like the one exception I would say. And honestly,
Yeah. Mhm.
I also like this movie though because it reminded me in a lot of parts of Lord of the Rings, and like the part where the forest, like they're cutting into the forest and the trees get
Mhm.
mad, and then like the Battle of Isengard or whatever.
Yeah.
And it really reminded me of that. And Nausicaa, like you said, Nausicaa had some of that quality too, but this one like reminded me of Tolkien like even more. And I love that. Like that's one of my favorite things about Tolkien, is like how he just like Miyazaki does, like Tolkien like kind of attributed these like spirits to the forest and to the trees, and that it's alive and they're like conscious thinking beings. Like that is, I love that like concept, you know, and I love thinking that like, you know, nature, you know, if you fight against nature, like it will fight back against you, sort of deal. But I thought this one was really interesting in the sense that the main character in my mind really isn't Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
It's the prince. And I forgot what his name is though,
Uh,
other than
like Ashitaka or something. I've never watched this movie in English, so I don't know how his name will be pronounced.
okay.
Like in
Okay.
English, I think it's something like Ashitaka or something. And that's
Yeah,
his
I
name in Japanese.
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, yeah. And so he's the main character, and he's interesting in that he kind of, I don't know if he like kind of takes the side, but he also feels for the people who are like fighting for their town and like fighting against the forest, you know. He like tries to kind of like save both. And like
Mhm.
he cares about Princess Mononoke. He seems to care, or at least see that like the forest, you know, maybe shouldn't be attacked or destroyed, but he also wants to protect like the town of the people that are actually the ones that are causing the war to begin with. So it's like he doesn't see them. It's not like pure evil versus pure good. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
there's kind of like
Yeah, yeah. Even
positive.
like the black hat, like the woman, like the leader of the people there.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
not like, you know, for example, in in not Nausicaa, in the castle in the sky. Have you seen that one yet?
No, I haven't seen that
Oh,
one
okay.
yet.
Well, there are like in other of his movies, there are people who are just like purely just like power hungry and just evil, right? But in
Mhm,
this
mhm.
one, it's like, you know, she was thinking, she was trying to do the best for her people, like, you know, like economic progress, that sort of thing. Like it was very sort of like, you know, industrialist sort of thinking, right? It's not like she hates nature or she like hates the animal. She's just like, oh, well, we can do much better if we sort of just like, you know, take possession of like make nature be of service to us, right? I think that's a very common sort of way of thinking, people from a certain time period, maybe even now still. Um, but you know, but then, you know, it's not that the something I love is that you can tell, you know, like the regular folks, they're just do their daily thing, right? They don't think much bigger than, oh, we're gonna conquer nature or whatever. It was people like high up on the top that decides, okay, we're gonna, you know, we yeah, we're gonna take one more step towards conquering nature or using nature or whatever.
Mhm.
So it's really not fair if you say, well, okay, well, you know, just you guys just all can all like go to hell and you know, give this land back to nature, and I don't care what you do. I think that would be a little, again, I mean, you know, you see people take this kind of stance, right? But I think that would be a little um unsympathetic, you know. It's I think it's just too there I think there's like a huge blind spot if you take that position. I think Ashitaka is like, you know, he sees that, yeah, there is a way for us to coexist. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean that one has to win over the other, you know, but
Mhm.
there's a line that you shouldn't cross. Like you shouldn't try to like kill the spirit just so you can harvest the power. That's like a step too far. And that you know, you shouldn't do that. So he would stop that. But then he's not telling the people that you can just all like, you know, F off, you know. It's not like that either. And I think you know, it's just make me admire like Miyazaki even more, because I think it's a very it's a right stance to have. You know, it's not like, oh yeah, it's all people's fault, like, oh yeah, you know, we should totally like, you know, forget about
Mhm.
nature if we can make use of it. And considering like
Yeah.
the yeah, like, you know, yeah, it's yeah.
I'm sorry. You can finish your thought. I didn't mean to
Oh, no, no, no.
judge.
It's just that I feel like for some, I don't know if it's upbringing or like just the time when he grew up. I feel like people nowadays tend to have like more extreme views on this issue. Like they either say, okay, well, just F nature or like F people, like
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree. I think
yeah,
you're right. Like people are more like that. They're either like all for nature and it's like people suck, or they're like
yeah, forget about
F
nature,
nature, like
we
you
gotta
said.
we gotta fill our bellies. Like, we can worry about conservation or like climate change when we're all like, living a good life or whatever.
Yeah. And that's what
Yeah.
I love. I do love that message in this movie. And then I'm also going to relate it to Tolkien too, though, because Tolkien shows like Hobbiton and the hobbits that are living, they are, I mean, they're not exactly humans, but they're like, there's basically, he shows a way where people coexist with nature. But then he also shows a way where sometimes when people go too far or they cross that line or they get too greedy, too power hungry or whatever, that's like too much and that's not balanced. And then same with Miyazaki in this case, like showing that maybe there's a way, like it's like the industrial town that's choosing to fight against the forest. um the woman who leads the town, she also pulled all those women out of a brothel to give them like honest work to do, and they were seemed to be like grateful to her even though it was really hard, like backbreaking work. They said like it's still better than where we came from. So they felt like, she was kind of like in a weird, she was an interesting character in that, the leader, I mean, in that she was so welcoming to these outsiders or these people that would have been like, cast aside by the rest of society, but she was closed off to the thought that they could coexist with this like forest. But also, I will point out that in the beginning of the movie, like the first times we see interaction between the human settlements and the forest, it's like the first time it's this really scary demon
Mhm.
creature coming out of the forest attacking the innocent village where the prince lives. And he's able to save the village but gets the curse
Yeah,
on
I get the
him.
curse. Yeah.
And then as he's traveling, the next time, it actually, the first time you see Princess Mononoke, she's like riding her wolves in to attack the woman and her people as they're like just trying to cross the mountain or whatever. And so it's almost like, I think like, people, and the female character who is like the leader of the town is an example of this. They are threatened by the dangers of nature and the fact that like you could get attacked by a wolf, or like they see nature as this threatening thing that needs to be, they have to like eradicate the danger, or they need to like tame nature so that it will be safer. And you can sympathize with that because when it's like people are actually dying as a result of this thing that's in nature, it's like you can understand how people took drastic measures. But I think there's even a line in this movie where she says something like, once all the wolves are gone, once we get rid of all the wolves, like we'll be able to, I can't remember how she finishes the sentence, but she says something about like eradicating the wolves. And that, to me, I heard that and I was like, that's exactly what people did in a lot of places in the world, including the United States of America. But it did make me wonder, like I was kind of curious as I was watching this movie, like I kind of doubt it, but I wondered, like, were there at one time wolves on in Japan, like on the Japanese like islands, or what type of wildlife was there way back when. I'm just like curious about that
Yeah,
now.
I'm not sure. Because like there could have been wolves from like Siberia, like from the Russia there, and
Yeah.
then maybe like in the Ice Age perhaps, but yeah, I'm
What
not
about
sure.
in like mainland, like in China? Are there wolves there, or were there wolves there?
Mm, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Or like I'm wondering about like also the wild boars. Like it's just so interesting the animals that he chose to include in
Oh
this
yeah, no,
forest.
there are, yeah, it's got Eurasian wolf. Yes, so
Oh yeah.
so
Okay.
there are wolves on in old world. Yeah, yes, yes. But it's gone now. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my impression was right. So it was like widespread during the Ice Age, like throughout the Eurasian continent, like Russian.
Mhm.
So maybe once there were wolves in Japan, um, like China, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in let's see. I'm trying to find if
I mean, Japan is such an ancient culture that like, and
oh
they are,
yeah.
that maybe.
So yeah, so there are oh maybe not now, but like as late as like like 1863, there are like Tibetan wolf.
Okay. Okay.
Oh
Tibetan
no,
wolf.
there's a let's see. Yeah, I'm like looking at the Wikipedia page of this Tibetan wolf. Yeah, no, I think it wasn't clear if there are still like wild populations out there, but you can see them in like zoos. Um, so maybe not so much in the wild, but yeah.
I was just like wondering, what made him choose like wolves, like
Yeah, and a
the
good question.
deer,
I don't know.
the deer that the prince rode looks to me kind of like an ibex. I think they're called ibex or ibex.
Oh, you mean like the deer looking animal?
Yeah, it
Mhm.
looks like a large, like a big ibex, and then um the wild boars, like I was like, I know that there were wild boars in Italy. When I went to Italy, I discovered that. I had no idea, but there are wild boars there, so there probably were wild boars like all over.
Oh yeah,
um
yeah. There are not
yeah.
that big though, of course, but yeah, there are
So yeah,
boars
yeah,
here. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah. And then, it was so interesting to me at the very beginning of the movie, I think it was, um, they said something about like they were telling like kind of the lore of the forest and the gods and the forest spirit and everything. And they were saying like back in the ancient times when there were giant giants, or so they referred to like giants, or like the fact that the animals are giant, like the boars and the wolves are like
Mhm.
larger than than what they are in on earth, like in the real world. And I just thought that that was so interesting because I feel like that's a very common mythological trope, where it's like it's in a lot of mythologies, it seems, where it's like they say like back in ancient times there were giants. Like why do we think that? Like is that like, I don't know. I'm just is like, it struck me when they said that, because I realized
Mhm.
like that mythology is true in European tradition and Christian tradition and that sort of thing as well. And so I'm like, where does that come from? Like, why do we think that there used to be like everything was larger? But it's kind of true in the sense that there was dinosaurs back in the day and they
Mhm.
were like larger than mammals are today.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Everything was larger back, in like in these times. Like insects, everything was larger.
I know, but isn't that crazy that people somehow like
No, but
know that?
they wouldn't have known that when they came up with the mythology. They couldn't have known. Oh yeah, it wasn't. I mean that these
No,
mythology
I know.
couldn't have been inspired by like the fossil whatever. They wouldn't know that. So yeah, I don't know why they have like they're all yeah. I don't know why this common thread
Isn't that
exists in
interesting?
like
Or
in all
it's like,
mythologies.
another one is that I think almost every culture, I heard something once where it's like almost every culture around the world has some sort of dragon in their mythology or in their
Yep,
like
yep.
ancient stories.
Yes, that is true. Yep.
Dragons are like prolific all over the world. And it's just like, what is that? Like, it's almost like I wonder sometimes if like maybe there were, people way back when came across like fossilized dinosaur bones and they didn't know what it was, but they looked at it and they thought like this looks like a scary giant
Yeah, it could be.
thing, and then they
Yeah.
invented like dragons. I don't
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah,
don't
it could
know,
be. It
but
could be. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, somebody probably has studied this already, so the answers may just be out there. But yeah,
well, Jordan Peterson says that it is, and this is probably true. It makes sense to me, but I still like wonder about it because I still feel like there's mystery there. But he says it's what a dragon is the combination of all of our historic like predators, because a dragon is like part bird, part reptile, part snake, part cat even. And back when humans were evolving into humans, when we were like monkeys and stuff, like, or we were just very primitive humans, those were our predators, big cats, snakes, birds, like some predatory birds and such. So, or they were our competitors at least. So, I don't know. I think that there's
yeah.
some truth
Well,
to
I
that.
think that might make sense for like Western dragon, because an Eastern dragon, it's also a combination of a few like animals, but so like in the Western mythology, dragons are evil beings, right? They're like um malicious. In Eastern mythology is the opposite. They're like gods, basically. They're like, godly creatures. It's much like like the dragon, the imagery of dragon is like in a spirited way. That dragon, that was like a Eastern dragon. That's how he looks like. Very
Yeah.
typical
Well, and
Eastern
I
dragon look.
obviously can picture like during Chinese New Year, like the dragon costumes that people wear or that they do in parades. Like I can picture that.
Oh yeah. But like the so
Those
the
are
role is
dragons.
like so the role is different. Like, I yeah, I think what you said makes sense that yeah, like the Western Dragon is probably just like a combination of all the threats to life or something. But then the Eastern Dragon, maybe not so much.
Might be something different. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of crazy that it's like such a prolific thing in mythology. And then
Yeah.
also like the giants thing, like people have had this idea for the longest time that like, they've known that things were bigger in ancient times. Um, so I don't know what that is. But
Yeah,
anyways, I
that
just
is curious.
noticed
That
that at
is
the beginning.
curious. Yeah.
Yeah. They said, I mean, this is obviously a fictional world, like in this movie, but like they had that or Miyazaki put in that mythology for this fictional world too, where it's like back in the day when there were giants, like, and everything was giant, the forest is this ancient thing and still contains some of these giant creatures, um yeah, it's cool. I don't know, I liked it. I liked
Yeah.
the like also the aesthetic of the forest, like especially I've said this I think for like every Miyazaki movie, but like some of the art that goes into the backgrounds and just the natural ecosystem that he is able to portray through this artwork is very intricate and incredible to see. So it's visually very beautiful. Yeah,
Mhm.
I just thought that like when they go into the forest, when the parts where they're in the water, like healing and stuff like that, it was just very like peaceful setting. I don't know, I liked it. I like that
Yeah,
design of
it was
that
very
environment.
beautiful. It was very
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. But I think there are a lot of parallels to between this movie and Nausicaa, right? Because like
there
it's
is.
also in like this space in Nausicaa, you have this whole world be like beneath the sand, beneath the ocean of sand. It's like peaceful and like nothing. And it wasn't, it wasn't, the air was not toxic. It was also like more of a healing space. In this
Mhm.
one, well, it wasn't beneath anything, but it was like deep in the forest. There's a grove, and then like the forest god would go there and show up and heal, if he feels like it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that must reflects like Miyazaki's idea about nature, perhaps, like the all that's harmful to humans that came out of nature was because like we provoked it. Like we sort of like we are the reason why the nature becomes harmful to us. Like we actually caused it.
Mhm.
And if you can like enter a space where like you don't have that mentality, you're not there to like to take advantage of nature, or disrespect nature, then it's actually like really good for you. Like it's a healing space. It's calm and it's beautiful and it's all that good things. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so
I
I think
mean,
that must reflect his mentality, his idea about what nature is. And yeah, so
yeah.
yeah,
You
he's
should,
amazing.
have you ever read I don't know if you've ever happened to to hear of this, but there's this famous, well, I don't know if it's famous, but I learned about it in grad school, I guess, because I was in like a master's program that had to do with human dimensions of natural resource management. So it was like, thinking about how like ecosystem values and everything that we value about nature is a human thing that we have, made in our own minds. Like everything of how we define nature, even the word nature and what that means, what that consists of, has changed over the years. So there's this famous essay called The Trouble with Wilderness, by William Cronin, that I recommend you to read, Chi. You might find it interesting, but it's just like kind of relates to this in the sense that he talks about how in more recent decades, like the concept of nature has completely shifted from what it used to be at different times in history, and now people are more likely to view nature as this like spiritual place where it's peaceful and calm and healing and all these things. But like in the past, there were times, and he's speaking from a Western perspective because he's a professor here in the United States and he's a white man. So I think he's mostly writing from the Western point of view. So I'm sure that it, definitely could be different in other parts of the world, but at least in the Western world, there were times where, people viewed nature as evil or scary or the unknown or dangerous, like, or as something to be that man needs to master or control or whatever. And so he talks about that, like all the shifts of how people have changed their way of thinking, and it's really fascinating, because it also puts into perspective that even our view today, that or Miyazaki's like view in this case of this, in these movies that seems to be there, like that might not always be the way that nature is seen by society, and it wasn't always seen by society in that way. But it's cool that it's in these movies, like that Miyazaki was able to write these stories and portray it in that way during this time, during this era, because I think it's a worthwhile, like, obviously, I think it's a very worthwhile view. But I don't know if I do see how there are complex relationships between people and nature, because it is the unknown for a lot of people. Like, nature is scary, the forest is scary. It goes back to our mythology, like the forest, or at least in Western world, it goes back to our mythology. Like, the forest is the scary, dark, unknown place where there are predators lurking, and where you are vulnerable if you wander in there unwittingly. Like, it's just, that still holds true for a lot of people. That is still how they feel when they think of a forest. And those of us that are more like familiar with nature or have exposed ourselves more, we might have a different view of it. But just knowing that different people have different relationships with it. But I would say that that's another theme of Miyazaki's movies, it seems to me, is that he kind of has this theme of the unknown can be really scary, but if you just embrace it and go into it, you will discover that it's not as scary as you think it is. It's like in every, like, even at the beginning of this movie, the very first encounter with nature that the main character has is this scary demon, awful looking, horrible creature that attacks his town. But then, later on, he ends up in the forest where that demon came from, and it's beautiful and it's peaceful. And he even sees, like, the first time he witnesses Princess Mononoke, she's like got blood all over her face because she's like, I don't know what she's doing, but like sucking something out of the wound of the wolf, her wolf friend. And it's like weird and wild and crazy. And yet, like, the main character is able to interact with her and nothing bad happens. She doesn't hurt him or attack him. She actually helped him later on in the movie, and she just let him be. Like, she wasn't going to bother him if he wasn't bothering her, but she did tell him to go away. But anyways, it's just like, that seems to be a common theme, where it's like something kind of scary exists on the border of nature and like where the people are. And then one of the main characters like wanders into that unknown nature part of the world, and then they discover like so many wonderful things when that character just goes into that unknown. And I think that that's true. It's like, yes, there can be very real scary things in the unknown, but if you just embrace it and go towards it with like courage, you will probably be able to figure out a way to coexist with whatever is new that enters into your world. And that is the ideal way of managing that relationship with the unknown, I would say. So that's where I do agree with Miyazaki in that sense, I guess, if that made sense. Sorry if that was a bit
No, yeah, it does, yeah. But for me, I think I mean, I would probably use respect, the word respect. So like, nature is not malicious. It's not like out to get you, right? It doesn't think that way. But
right.
But if you say, like, if you just, like, okay, using like real life examples, you would hear every once in a while, at least in Taiwan, that somebody is like decide to go like mountain climbing and like and not really paying attention of the weather, or you know, they didn't think if they're like well equipped or not. They just like this, okay, I'm gonna go climb this mountain. And you know, lo and behold, they, you know, either like bad weather or they're like not well prepared, so they get lost. Some they even die because of this. You know, and all that is not because like nature is like malicious. It's just that you don't understand, you don't know what you're doing. And I think that, you know, you can like include like wild animals, you know, as part of that. Like, you know, you're not there to like, you know, yeah, I mean, they're not like enemies, but they're also not there to like make friends with you. Like if you just don't respect them, don't respect the animals, the elements, you know, the environment, the nature, quote unquote, then, you know, you might just bring yourself harm. And that's all because you don't understand. And when you don't understand, you got to tread lightly, you know, you got to take things seriously. You don't just go in and expect and project whatever you have in your mind into this. Like, you know, yeah, like I think um yeah, I mean, going back to the healing place thing, right? Like it's, I think you would be wrong if you, I mean, nobody would really do this, but like just an example, like, you know, you would be wrong. Just like, oh, well, now I'm just gonna wander like into the woods and like expect this healing experience. Well, you might not find that, right? You might just get lost and you know, whatever, and it would be the opposite of the healing experience that you're expecting.
Mhm.
Um, but um yeah, I guess like under the right circumstances and you know, with the right attitude, yeah, nature can be healing. But but again, it's not because like he wants to
Oh yeah.
heal you, right? Like it's not like that. It's just that, you know, you gotta find your way, like to have that experience. And
I,
not yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's definitely like good for your health as a human being to
yeah,
be
yeah, absolutely,
connected
yeah,
to nature and
yeah.
like to be able to get outside and be feel that connection with the earth and with nature, however you do that, whether that's through gardening, through going for walks during the day, if it's through hiking or going camping, like however you want to do it. If you own a farm, if you like to go fishing, whatever. But it's like, I think all of that is, it's good to have that connection with nature. Um, but I agree with you. It's like nature isn't nature is neutral in a sense, like it's
Mhm.
not good. Well, it can be good, but it also can be bad. Like you could be going into nature with the utmost respect, you could go prepared and everything else, and still, you know, nature is unpredictable and it can hurt you sometimes. Like storms happen, there are hurricanes and tsunamis and diseases and those are all parts of nature, and it can harm you sometimes, but it also can benefit you from being in close contact with nature as well. So it's like, it's in my mind, it's like it's not always one or the other. I mean, but I think if you go out prepared in a environment that you're like semi familiar with, like chances are you're going to be fine and it is going to be a good experience, and it might even have some healing benefits to it. I've certainly experienced that in nature many
Mhm.
times, like
Yeah,
feeling restored, feeling renewed or healed by spending time in nature. Like that is very true. Like even just sunshine can be very healing at times. And so that's great, but also too much sunshine and you get a sunburn and you could even get skin cancer. So it's like, I'm not
yeah,
trying to like, put a damper on it, but I'm just trying to say it's
yeah.
like, you know, I don't know if it's always the case that it's like, yes, there are many examples that we could go on and on about in our modern society where human beings have purposefully, intentionally done things that then result in bad, like, okay, I agree with the statement that like we want our forests to be healthy because in return our communities will be healthy too. Like I believe that. I believe we're interconnected in that sense, that it's like you want to preserve the the quality of, well, you hope that the environment around you stays healthy, because then chances are you and the human communities that are living there will also be healthy. But there are examples of times when it's not necessarily like any human being's fault that people still become victims
Mhm.
of things that happen in nature, and that, you know, that happens too. So it's like nature is neither it's not, I don't view it as like a benevolent god or an evil spirit. Like I don't believe it's either one of those things. I think it's just nature, and it
Yeah.
like sometimes it is unpredictable and people get hurt or their property gets destroyed for no good reason, because that's just how it's always been. Even before, even, you know, way back in time, there's always been floods and volcanoes erupting, like all these things that are not caused by human, you know, humans
Mhm.
necessarily doing anything. But we've also had a very, at least in the Western world, had a very ancient tradition of storytelling where I think people have always wondered throughout human history if when bad things happen by nature, is that because we did something wrong? Like, you know, in ancient Greek and Roman mythology, like if there was a natural disaster, they would
Mhm.
say that it was a god that was angry, you know, like some god got upset and that might have been the fault of the people. You know, the people angered the god, and so then the god like erupted or flooded or whatever. You know, Poseidon got angry and when they were on their ship sailing across the sea and then their ship sank, you know. So it's like people have always wondered, I think, you know, are we influencing nature? And we are to some extent, that's for sure, but not everything that nature does can be manipulated and controlled by us. And that's a good thing. I think we, as much as it does cause human suffering sometimes, and I would never wish that on anybody, but like I think it's good to be reminded that we as human beings are not in control of everything, and there there are forces in this world that are more powerful than us. So at least right now, I don't know, maybe our human race is progressing with technology to the extent that one day we will be manipulating every little thing in nature, but I don't think we want to go there, because that's like that's not that's way too much of a burden for human society to be responsible for all of the millions and billions of processes that nature handles on its own every day. So it's like we don't want to be responsible for all that. So let's just let nature do its thing and try to like live in a more balanced relationship with it. In my
Mhm.
opinion, like I think that's what we should be aiming for, because we have to exist as humans, and we have to try to survive and live healthy lives, which sometimes means that we sacrifice certain parts of nature. But I don't know, even the whole thing of thinking of human beings as outside of nature, that's another thing that I'm not sure if that's in that Trouble with Wilderness essay, but it was something that I talked about in my grad school education, because it's like that's also a crazy like philosophical debate to be had, is like, are humans outside of nature or are we part of nature? Like, which one is it? Like, are we technically, I mean, we are like creatures on this earth and we are part of the ecosystem, but how come we view man-made stuff as being separate from nature when, you know, if we're just part of this world too, you know? So there's like a debate to be had of like, you know,
Yeah.
where is that line drawn between what's natural and what is not, you know?
Yeah, I but I don't know. I think how meaningful this debate is depending on what's the purpose of the debate. So like for example, like you can say like cars is not part of nature because like cars don't exist. Like it's not a product of evolution, right? Like you know, like yeah, it would like we made these
But we
things.
are, we
No,
are,
no,
and we made the car. So it's just like an ant is a product of evolution and they build an ant mound. The mound wouldn't be there if the ant wasn't there, but the ant's part of nature. And so now the mound's part of nature, you know? I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
no, I know. I get that. I get that line of reasoning, but yeah, I guess in that sense I would say no. Because like a lot of the yeah, I think the car, yeah, I don't know. I don't think the analogy holds up because like there's just so many things about cars. It's just not, you know, it's like it's so different from like, from because because humans alter the landscape in the same way like ants do, right? Like we can sort of I don't know, like cultivate a piece of land or something, and that's also, yeah, that's no problem. But like cars and like planes and all that, like I don't know, I just don't, I think it's too far out there. Like there's so
I
many
think that
unnatural things there that I don't think that qualifies. That you can apply the same line of logic and say, okay, and argue because we are part of evolution. So like wherever we make is also part of the natural world. I don't know. Maybe I didn't think
well
about it. Maybe like
that's
there's a
the
logical flaw there but I just don't. My gut feeling is telling me that it doesn't really compare. No, but like but but I guess my point was but like what is the point of making this distinction though? Like um I think the fact is that we have a much higher capacity of like altering the world than any other organisms that exist, right? Like we just have so much higher capacity to like we can like level mountains, we can like like uh sort of fill the ocean and build cities upon it. We can turn deserts into like a oasis or like an habitable city, like Los Angeles, for example, is one of is that, right?
mm,
Like, but like how I guess for a lot of people to ask this question is like, well, if we screw up the earth badly enough, can we actually save ourselves from that, from like a self-inflicted destruction, right? Say like we've been like, humans have caused climate change, right, through like carbon emissions. That's just a fact. And it's like warming, the trend is continuing and it doesn't seem like it's gonna, well, it's never gonna reverse. And it's still a question if we can like it's gonna like taper off, right? So if when the day comes when we pass the point of no return and we realize, yeah, the earth is heading toward a bad direction, and are we actually able to like save ourselves from that destiny? And I'm not talking about it's not going to be as dramatic as like, oh yeah, humanity is going to go extinct, but there's going to be a lot of sacrifices. Like a lot of people will lose their homes because their home would be like underwater, right? A lot of places would just be like, a lot of animals would just die and go extinct because we heat up the earth, right? And like we don't exist in a vacuum. Like all these things is gonna like cause harm to us too, maybe like through very indirect ways. And we can like I don't see a way of us to like isolate ourselves from all that impact. So, and then you can argue that, yeah, maybe like when that day comes, we we would have found another habitable planet. We just go there and start over. And I mean that is possible. Maybe not very likely, but it's totally possible. So like I'm just a little lost. Like when I just follow this, like these lines of thinking, I'm just getting lost about like, so like what like so what's the, I don't know, like I don't know where this is heading really, like
Well, I think it's
except that
like, I think it,
we like evolution doesn't is not like a regulatory mechanism. Like it doesn't guarantee harmony or anything. So like yes, we are the, our intellectual capacity, our superior, like never seen
Mhm.
before intellectual capacity, and the ability to like innovate and invent and all that might in the long term be like a harmful thing to have, harmful trait to have. Because like you can imagine like there might be a day that comes when we have to like, okay, well, we got to find another planet by this day or we're all doomed. Or like, half of the population would just have to like we face very serious crisis, if not just die um outright. I can imagine this scenario. um and why? Because we didn't understand our intellect is capable of, and what that might lead us to. We have no idea. And it was only natural that we like make the most use of our intellect and try to like, okay, make cars, have all this innovations, inventions and all that. We just didn't, we as we didn't know, like we are now wired to pursue harmony. Nobody is, no creature is wired to, to like for to exist in harmony with other animals. Like the harmony that you see, like like a net, like a tropical rainforest where like a lot of organisms exist in harmony. That's not true. That's not true at all.
Yeah,
It's all,
yeah,
yeah, like
right.
this already, right? But like it's not guaranteed. Like not that is not
Exactly.
an
Yeah,
objective of evolution or natural selection. No, it's like
right,
whoever is the fittest is going to take over. And
right.
yeah, like we have become the fittest and we're taking over. And like
Are we
if
though? Are we the fittest?
I I
Because we
I
could
think
destroy
no,
ourselves,
no,
but
but I think
some
I think
creatures on this earth will manage to survive through that. We might not, but some other
well,
ones
yeah, okay, well, yeah,
might
okay,
do
yeah,
just
I
fine.
take that back. That's true. That is true. We might not be the fittest, but like I guess we're like we're like a very dominant species in the world. Like
We just cannot, we can only look through our human lens. Like we can't step outside of our human lens entirely. So we're trapped. Like that's what it is like we have to look at the world through our own human lens and we can't help it. And that's the only way we can do it. And so,
yeah,
we're
yeah. I
limited
mean,
by
that's
our
exactly,
own
yeah.
understanding and we can never escape that. I mean, as far as I know, in our lifetime at least, maybe one day they'll invent a way where you can transform into a different species. And
like the lobster.
yeah, yeah, something like
like the,
that.
like the movie The
That's right. I
Lobster.
forgot about.
Yeah.
That's so funny that you mentioned that because I literally was just thinking about that movie like the other day and hadn't thought about it for the longest time. And then it like occurred to me in my mind again. So that's funny that you brought that up because I really hadn't even thought about that in forever. But
Yeah, The Lobster. That would have been a solution, wouldn't it? Like if you don't get married by a certain age, you just get turned into an animal. You just, oh, yeah, all right, we'll give you back to the ecosystem as another thing. No, like but I think that's exactly the, not like the blind spot, but like like, okay, for example, like I can never say, as much of a crisis we have created, I can never say that yes, well, solution would be just to kill off like half of the population, human population. Like I mean, that would have been that would have been a solution, right? But like, but no, like I can't. No one can say that. That's not ethical,
Thanos.
right? But like, like it's yeah, like
We're
human
always,
welfare is always going to be. Oh wait, hold on. Do I just? Can you say something? Can you say something?
yeah,
Oh,
I'm
okay, okay,
here.
okay. I all of a sudden I thought like you're mute or something.
Oh, no, no.
No, no, no. Okay, so yeah, like you gotta always have human welfare in mind. Like you can't just say, yeah, you
We have
know,
morals. We
yeah,
we are
exactly, exactly. Yeah, we have
we're
morals, and
really,
so you gotta, and then that is why like some of the options, like theoretical options, is out of the question, right? Like you can't just like send off some, or like okay, if you can just turn people into animals and give them back to restore like the polar bears or the whatever species that have gone, that have like have been decimated by human population, human progress. If we can just turn people into these, like replenish these individuals with humans, that would have been a solution. Like that would have been like yeah, but like no, even if we could do that, that's not ethical. We can't do that if, even if we could. um
Mhm.
so I don't know. Yeah, I think so yeah, I think that just makes me think that we are not really outside of or beyond anything, like you know
yeah, but nevertheless, we are moral creatures that have found ourselves in this predicament throughout history where we are living in this world, and we are able, seemingly unlike pretty much any other animal that we know of, to be able to like look, we're conscious in the, like it's kind of a aspect of being conscious of ourselves, like we're conscious of ourselves and of ourselves in relation to the rest of the world. And so that's probably why we have this defined in our philosophy and in our minds and in our societies. We have this defined boundary of like, that's nature over there, and then this is not nature, like this is human existence, and that's nature, and this is human. But it's interacting all the time. There's so much, I think about it like, if you have a house, the house is man-made, but you might have a garden outside that has flowers and trees and dirt and grass. Is the garden nature, or is that man-made? Is my dog is a dog that would not have existed if it weren't for human beings breeding animals together. And so it's like, is my dog nature, or is my dog not nature? It's like there's so many
mhm.
ways that nature and humanity interact and intersect with one another. We can't avoid it. We're so interconnected. We can never be fully separate from it. And as much as we try to control and manipulate our human environment to be perfect for ourselves, to be hospitable to ourselves and our families, it's never going to be it's never going to be perfect, because nature always finds a way to interact. We're still constantly interacting with nature, whether we like it or not. So it's like, I think that that's a beautiful thing, but I think that there is a spectrum as far as like how balanced that interaction or that intersection can be. And sometimes it's not very balanced, and sometimes it's more about, like, I think that I don't know what a better word to use is other than balance. So harmony is, you could think of it as that, but I think it's more of like this this balance in the interaction between human species and the rest of the natural world, because we want that for our own well-being. And that's the thing, is that like our how we value nature always, no matter what, is always going to come back to human values. Like we can't have any other type of values. We only have human values. So the reason why we care about nature is because we also are really, what it really is we care about ourselves, and we care about where we live, we care about our well-being, and that is inextricably linked to the natural world. So you know, I think I will just end with that and relate that back to this movie, in the sense that I think Miyazaki shows that in this movie, where it's like he's not denying the need for human societies to exist in these towns or in these civilizations where maybe they're outside of the forest, and they're having to utilize like resources from the forest in order to build that society. But there are times when those societies, they go a little too far, they step a little too far, they take a little too much, they want to eliminate all of the unknown, they want to eliminate the danger that is present within nature. And I think whenever we do that, we pay a price for it. It's like even literally, like I talked about earlier, how there was a line about eradicating the wolves in the movie. It's like we did that in the US, and we did pay for it, because now we have a deer problem in the US. There's like way too many deer and no predators. And they've shown that we're in the areas where wolves were reintroduced, it like changes the whole ecosystem to be in a more healthier state, because you actually need those predators on the landscape to force the herbivores to not be overgrazing in any one area. So it's like weirdly important to have the dang wolves there. And so it's like so many examples like that, of where human beings have tried to fix things using our, limited knowledge of something, and we've actually just made it worse or made it harder to live in those conditions. And that's, I think, where we have to be careful, and we need to understand that there's still so much we don't know about nature. We don't understand some of the ecosystem services that we are receiving from nature. Like we don't even know what they are until we get rid of them, and then all of a sudden we realize, oh shoot, that was actually really important for us. And it is linked to our survival, and it's linked to how long we're going to be able to inhabit this earth. So it is very important for our species as a whole to figure out what this proper balance, or that this ideal balance might be. And there's some things we can't take back. And that's just part of being human too, because human beings make mistakes and they do stupid stuff all the time. And that's not going to change anytime soon either. So we just got to hope that, we figure out a way before it's too late to be able to live on this planet alongside nature without making the whole planet inhospitable to us. And I believe that there's a way to do that, but that's my choice to believe in that. And it is a belief, because we don't know, we don't have the scientific knowledge to really know. And so it's like a matter of faith in my mind. But I think that I do appreciate that about this movie, that Miyazaki kind of doesn't make either side. It's like not a good versus evil story. It's like there's aspects of good and evil on both sides of the war. But they end up, it is a happy ending at the end. So that's good. But
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
what I'll end with. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. It was
If
optimistic ending for sure. But
yeah.
yeah, like I don't know, like if we talked about like, the future being maybe one day we have to like either find a planet by this day or we're all gonna be in big trouble. But another alternative would be, like, because we are just figuring things out as we go, right? Like how nature works. And that's a lot of like ecological studies are for. And if you believe the statement that nothing is like unknowable by nature, it's just we don't know them yet. We don't, and not enough study have been done, or we haven't got to it yet. Then you can imagine a day where we can actually have the ability to create a nature, um like by our will. Like for example, like, oh yeah, the deer is a problem, we should introduce wolves, but the wolves, if they're there, they're going to come with a human, they might harm us. Like I can imagine a scenario where they just like produce this like genetically modified or human bred wolves that are just friendly to human, but they could just there and hunt down deer and all that. Like, I can I don't know if this would come true. I'm not saying that it will come true, but I can imagine, we can have the ability actually to like to modify or create the natural environment solely based on our needs. We can create this um so the human landscape right now is like we build concrete buildings, like houses, highways, but like in a future would be maybe not all this. Like we can create like, like forests or like natural habitats or whatever. And then we can, we'd be like even much more powerful in terms of engineering the environment. Um, so that, yeah, like this, human friendly wolves will be like everywhere and they take care of the deer for us, but they would never be like,
We already did
no,
that,
nobody,
Chi.
no, nobody
Called
would be harmed.
dogs.
Sorry, what?
We already made human friendly wolves and they're called
Oh yeah, they're
dogs.
good dogs. I know, but like dogs, they're
We
not.
already did that a
We did
long
that,
time
yeah. But like,
ago.
what I mean is like, but your dogs wouldn't be out there like hunting down like deer like that. They don't really. I guess they don't really do that. Oh, if they do, they would just like become feral or whatever. They'll become their own
Well, it's
problems. But
and
like,
it's not really, I mean, half of it, the conflict is actually the wolves taking humans' livestock is actually more of the problem, I think, today at least, than worrying about the wolf attacking a human being. Um,
right.
I think
No,
it's
but
more
no,
of like,
but the thought experiment still holds. Like my point is that we can
yeah,
create some, yeah,
I
we
know.
can we can produce this wolf that just has like a bloodlust for deer, like, yeah, so like it would solve the
Can't
problem
stand the
without being a
taste of.
problem to ourselves. Like you can imagine that would just happen someday. And then once that happens, there's no, it would like open doors to something like wild, I don't know, like nature engineering or something like that, something of that nature. We just, okay, well, we need some like rainforest trees there, let's just like, make some like,
Yeah,
you know and I mean, I think
they're
when the
already
time when the
talking
time
about,
comes, sorry.
aren't they already like trying to figure out how to do like weather manipulation, like artificially like cause clouds to form
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
rain to
yeah, yeah. But
fall,
but that's
you
but
know?
that's still very, yeah. I mean, they can like make rain, right? They can just, when the condition is right, they just like drop some like little crystals or something, so like the vapor can like coalesce around it and they make rain that way. Like it's not some sort of new technology, but that is still very minuscule compared to like the whole weather pattern, right? Like for example, like we can't make hurricanes go away, not yet, right? But like there might be a day when we can actually do that. Or like, just all aspect of nature as we call it now, um we can just create them. as we see fit.
I see. That's what I was trying to say earlier, though. Like, I hear stuff like, I understand what you're trying to say, but I hear stuff like that, and I just think that sounds like a horrible nightmare. That,
No,
like,
I'm not saying this is like a bright future. I'm just saying that when that day actually arrives, that would be the day when we are like absolutely detached from, like untethered by any sort of, cause you can imagine if
well,
that
but
if we could.
we will never be, though, because you can always go up an order of magnitude, because we're always still going to be susceptible to, like, the sun could explode, the an asteroid could hit the earth. Like, yeah, maybe eventually we'll even figure out how to, deter asteroids or move to other planets so that when our sun starts to die, like, we won't have to. But there's always going to be something, like, we could be in another galaxy and there's going to be stars there that could die and explode, or, like, meteors there that could hit the earth, like, all, or whatever, wherever we're living. Like, there's always going to be something bigger than us that is, I mean, unless eventually we get to be so powerful that we are literally controlling the entire universe, which is really difficult to imagine since of how big the universe is, and there's just not enough of us human beings to do it. Like, we'll never, there's always going to be something beyond us, and we don't even know how big the freaking universe is. We don't even know. This is the thing, is like, I don't really believe that science is like that, that we accumulate knowledge and that we just get closer and closer to knowing it all. It's never like that. It's always like we are uncovering more and more of what we don't know. It's like, that's what scientific advancement is
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
No,
we answer
yeah.
some things and then we uncover 15 more things that we have known nothing about. So it's like, there's always going to be more questions, more unknowns. And that's
Right.
a beautiful, wonderful thing that we just have to come to terms with, because that's part of existence in my book. Like, that's just part of living in the universe, is like, there's always going to be the unknown. And that's what nature is. I guess that's what I would define as, the true wilderness. If you ever read that essay, Trouble with Wilderness, the true wilderness is the unknown. And that's always going to exist for us.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, yes, maybe. So, like, again, I don't have a fixed stance on it, 'cause I really don't know. It really, it may very well be that, yes, it's, the knowledge or the unknown is like inexhaustible. Like, you always uncover more and more and more that you don't know. Or our intellect will just reach a capacity where we can't figure out everything. That is certainly possible, but it's also possible that that's not true. I just don't know. And I actually fear the day, like, going back to, we don't even worry about, because, like, when the sun is going to die, that's like, millions of years from now. So, like, that's too far. I'm talking about maybe in the next, like, let's say 1,000 years. Okay. And I, I actually I don't know how I feel about, let's assume, for the sake of this, argument or whatever, that we figure out how to, we have the capacity to create a natural environment as we see fit. Let's just say we figure out how to do that. Let's not talk about the sun or whatever, okay? A terrible truth, a terrible consequence from that is that any sort of respect for nature would be just moot, because you don't have to. I agree with you. Like, the respect for nature is that, because there's something we don't know, you can't control how everything like operates, right? So, like, if you go into the mountains, if you're ignorant, if you don't respect enough, then you're going to bring harm unto yourself. But there might be a day when that is not a concern anymore. That would just be purely like a philosophical a stance that one can or cannot take on. It's like you decide to worship your ancestors, but you don't but it's fine if you don't do that at all. It might just be that, for nature, like you can just like cut down a tree or whatever, because but what's the big deal? I'm actually very uncomfortable with this prospect. I'm not preaching for that. I'm not saying, oh yeah, we've got a holy grail when we can do it. No, that's not my point. My point is that I'm really, because I also feel like that is very important. Like you respect the world as it is, even if you have the ability to sort of undo any harm that you might have done. I feel like what the day when it's okay to lose that, when that becomes just a pure philosophical thing, I don't know. I don't like that. But but there is possibility when that is, that might be just be inevitable. Like just based on the, our desire for knowledge and our ability to like innovate and it's I don't know. Yeah.
I I don't know either, but I don't really believe that I guess I personally don't believe that it's ever going to be possible for human beings to completely take over artificially doing everything that nature does. And part of that is because there's always going to be aspects of nature that we don't understand, that we can't see, or that we would never. I mean, you could go down to like the physics. Like there's so many unknowns in physics alone, and that's the basis of like everything. So it's like, we're never, I just don't believe that it's ever going to be possible, because I guess I believe that we're limited beings. We're mortal, limited beings that will never have that power to completely replicate what nature and evolution has done over billions of years. And we don't even know how much, evolution here on Earth was linked to what was going on in the universe before life even existed on Earth. So, I just don't think that we'll ever get there. So I don't worry about it, I guess is what I'd say. But from a philosophical perspective, I take your point. I think it's an interesting philosophical debate. And I understand what you're saying is that
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
preaching for it.
Yeah, I'm not as optimistic about our limitations actually, because you think about how
Well,
much
okay,
how much we have discovered just from the past 200 years. Like I'm scared actually, but not like, scared like shitless scared, but like
here's what it is. Like we have figured out how to harness solar energy using solar panels, but our solar panels only harvest solar energy at like 3% what
yeah,
your
right, but
average
like
plant
but
does.
like for now, but that's all like for now, that's true. Like when you look at like the something that we just start developing like recently, of course you're gonna it seems like obvious that yeah, we're so bad, we're doing such a bad job harvesting that, but like think about just the ability to like to
No,
manufacture. I know I'm not trying to like say you're
maybe I
wrong.
should
I'm
correct what I'm trying to say to be that I wouldn't be surprised if
yeah.
people will get to the point where they think they can take control of certain things in nature, but I believe that will be the death of us, because we will try to go too far, not realizing what we don't know, and we will try to take over some sort of process, and
Mhm.
we end up tampering with something that we shouldn't be tampering with, and it will backfire, and then we will all die. That's what I believe. It's not that we wouldn't do it or try to do it. It's
Yeah.
that is going to be there are limits to what I believe human beings can do, and when we go too far, we will suffer the consequences, and either that will result in everyone dying, or it will basically set us back to like prehistoric times, and we'll have to start all over again because there'll be like so few people left on the earth that it will just
I know, but you know, I guess it's not like we got it right, and we are like happy we live happily ever after, but like I am imagining the scenario where it's really all about like the respect for the natural world. I just fear that one day it's gonna go away because yes, like you said, we think we know so much. Maybe like at the end we didn't know, and then we all like we all sort of things has gone awry, and we all sort of like you said. But before that, when we think when the truth has not been revealed to us, that we actually miss this part. So this nature we created is gonna fail to it's gonna malfunction in like 100 years, and then we're all gonna whatever. Before that was revealed to us, there would be a point where we think we know everything. We can create, we are so powerful, we are so capable of like reproducing nature as we see fit, that any idea about like respecting nature would just be like a pure philosophical choice. Like I don't,
I see what you're saying.
I don't like that, but then again, like there's no stopping people trying to figure out all the processes out there. Whether we can or cannot do that is a different question, but nobody's going to say, okay, let's stop figuring things out. That's not going to happen. That's for sure. Right.
No.
So I just see like ourselves like heading, or like the human race heading down that path. And I, like, I certainly hope that we never get close enough so we can have this ignorance, this true justified ignorance that we got it.
Well,
because now you can say that is like it's a very uncomfortable thought, actually.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
I don't know what else to say other than
I know. It's like it's kind of dark, but
well, no, this is just one of the many reasons why I think having a good I think it's important to in addition to thinking about philosophy and science and everything, to also think about your spiritual perspective on the world, because this gets into spiritual territory for me really quick, because like what you're describing is just like it's pride, and pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. And that's, when people get to that point where as a society everybody is like way too prideful, it's called a deadly sin because it can be deadly. And that is how I view it, I guess. And I don't know how else to say it, but
I think hubris, that's it's but like,
and it's like when he like in Christian tradition, it's like the Tower of Babel. It's like when humans strive to be too much, if it's almost like when you try to take on the role of being God, like you will so quickly be thrust back down like that. I don't know. It's like when we try to play God too much.
I know.
Believe that will backfire.
That's why I have to learn English. That's all because of that, isn't it?
What?
The Tower of Babel. Do you know what happens?
Oh yeah, all the different languages. I'm sorry. I had lost, I had forgotten
Oh,
I brought that up.
sorry. I thought
Um
it was like
yeah, they scattered all the languages, and yeah, but then later on, in I was just hearing this story the other day, later on in the New Testament, there's a a second occurrence that occurs where instead of them not being able to understand all the other languages, the disciples are able to speak in, they are given the gift of being able to speak in all the different tongues. Anyway, so it's like the opposite of what happens in the Old Testament. So that's why it's important to read the Bible as a whole. But anyways, I guess what I was really trying to say is that I think that it's important for us to, this is why, one of my values is it is important to strive to be humble and to have humility um, in an authentic way, because and all of society, all of human beings should, I see that as a virtue, no matter what your religious beliefs are. It's important to keep a sense of humbleness and humility about you, because to constant, that's the mark in my mind of true wisdom, is to be aware of how much you don't know and how little power you actually have, and to understand that and admit that. And I think it's important for human beings to strive to learn more and to understand more and to gain knowledge. Like, I think that that's a beautiful thing that humans should always do. It's just also part of who we are. But I think that we, at the same time, you need to be humble with the knowledge that you possess, because that's important too. And I think it was like Socrates or somebody said, um like I or what was it, it was like, I know nothing or something like that. The more I learn, the more I know that I know nothing. The quote was something along those lines.
Mhm.
And it's like, I really relate to that, because I feel that way as I've gotten older in life. It's like, gosh, you'd think that you start to learn more and you understand more. And yeah, you do understand more about the world, but you also become painfully aware of how little you know. And I think that
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
true in science and in intellectual pursuits of all kinds, is like, you've never exhausted everything, you've never learned all that there is to know. And to just be reminded of that, that's like, to remind yourself of that, that's wisdom. And
Yeah.
wisdom has value too. Their intelligence has value and intellect has value, but wisdom is just as valuable sometimes, and it is a different thing. I don't think intelligence and wisdom are
No,
necessarily the
they're different. They're different. Yeah.
same.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true. I hope that I do hope I do hope it's true that we never get to know all there is to know. But I wouldn't say I'm like 100% confident that that's gonna be, because I don't know, right? Like I don't know yet. I don't know if we one day will be able to exhaust, or maybe not all the facts, or not all there is to know, but not enough to know all that matters. You know?
Well, I hope that we learn, like, I do hope we continue to learn. I kind of hope that we do learn how to navigate and move through space and go into different planets and stuff. But I also
Yeah,
hope
but like,
that
oh
we don't destroy the earth in the process.
no, but like, okay, but the worry is though, like maybe not for us, because I don't need a, okay, for example, if we say, if we are notified that, okay, we find another, like, inhabitable planet within reach, and you can see how that would just solve a lot of problems on Earth already, right? And you can just see a lot of people just be going like, oh yeah, okay, well then we don't have to worry so much about global warming or whatever, or like overfishing or whatever. Well, it's not a problem. Like, for me, I don't need a like utilitarian reason for me to say, okay, we shouldn't like, you know, exhaust, like make the most use of nature. I'm quoting again, like quote unquote nature, just because we have another, another, we found another place that we can have a fresh start. I don't need the reason. I don't need this to I don't need the fact, oh yeah, this is all we've got. There's nothing out there. So if this planet is destroyed, we're destroyed. I don't need this reason to convince me that I shouldn't like, be conscious about environment or whatever. But there are a lot of people who are not like this. They have to have like a utilitarian reason to tell them why I should care about the environment, why I should care about the global warming or whatever. I just feel like one day when there's like a solution, when solutions like that present themselves to us, um, yeah, like a lot of people just be like, all right, well then, good, I don't have to, let's just, yeah, whatever.
I
You see what I mean?
I
Like,
I think this is the last thing I'm gonna say, because then
yeah,
and then
okay.
I'll let you say whatever else you want to say, but then I do gotta hop off of here. But I just guess I believe that there are always gonna be people that, I can only speak from the American perspective here, but even people that you might not necessarily think of as being environmentalists or like interested in environmental sustainability, I can tell you right now they wouldn't like it if the river that they fished on when they were growing up turned into a river of crap, like they want things. I think people will care about the earth as our home, even if we do eventually move off to a different planet, or some people move, some people stay. There's always going to be some people that kind of like stay behind longer than others. And I guess I just like to think that there's always going to be people interested in the beauty of nature. Like, it is beautiful. It's objectively beautiful to most people to look at certain things in nature. And maybe it's not the same thing for everybody, but like people look at a beautiful landscape and they can tell that it's beautiful. And that's like something that I think there's always going to be people that are going to try to preserve that. And even if it is for selfish reasons, it's like, I don't know, it might not look the same as what it once was, and it's already changed, and there's already species that have gone extinct, and we can't change that now. But that's how it's always going to be too into the future, is like even without humans on the earth, like there's always going to be species that come and go and become extinct. And yeah, I think we are manipulating things to an extent where species are going extinct that probably shouldn't go extinct and that I wish wouldn't go extinct. But like that's just the way things are always going to be changing. So you're never going to be able to preserve it like in one spot, like looking the same way forever, because that's not natural either. But I do think that there's always going to be people, even if there comes a time when we have a perfectly good other planet to move to, I think there'll be some people that might do their best to try to take care of the earth, or at least leave it in a semi good state. And if not, if the earth is really ruined and all of the people leave earth to go to a different planet, eventually nature will take back over. It might take a million years, but eventually it will. And it might look different, but that's how nature works. It continues to exist after we are gone, or you know, it exists outside of us. And I think that that's again what I appreciate about Miyazaki's movies is he kind of shows that in his movies, is that like we are living in the midst of this magical, wondrous world, and it is beyond us, and there are forces at work that are beyond us. And that's how I do look at nature that way. Like we I just think that it will always be existing around us, because there's always going to be something outside of us, is what I believe. But that's all I will have. I'll finish with just saying that, and you can say your closing
Oh, no, no, no.
statements,
I don't have
Keith.
anything to add, actually. I think I can't sum up yeah, thank you for bringing back to the movie again, because I think it's getting towards a bit of a tangent. No, but I do think those are important thoughts. It's just that it's yeah. But
No,
um
it's
but
so
but, but I think the
interesting.
great thing about Miyazaki is that they it makes you think along these lines. It makes you like rethink our maybe not like us personally, but like the relationship in the human race and the environment. Sometimes like um I mean, certainly that was like important. I wouldn't say like I was you know I knew something about this already when I watched the movie, but still it just makes me think.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like how I like the story and
Hmm.
everything. So it was
Yeah.
definitely worth watching. And I don't know if I can really rank them yet without like going back and rewatching them
Hmm.
another time. But yeah, I've really enjoyed each one in its own way, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and also I'm happy to, I think it's fine to go on a little tangent, you know, have these like conversations, these more like philosophical conversations sometimes. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's
I just forgot about we have to like bring it back because like it's ultimately
yeah.
it's about this movie, right? So like we should
Okay.
somebody I'm glad you did because I was like totally forgot about, oh yeah, okay, we're actually here to talk about the movie.
I tried to do it
Again, like
once or
not, I'm
twice.
not apologizing for the tangent, like because I think those are good thoughts, I think. But if we just end there, it would be like, oh well, it's like so far from where we started, it would be a little weird, I guess, for the listeners out there. Um,
Well, I hope I brought it back in a way that actually made sense. I don't
no,
know.
it did, yeah, it did. Yeah, no, I'm glad you enjoyed the movie because I do like this movie a lot. Like I've said it a few times in this recording now, but yeah, I think it's a very like thought-provoking movie.
Yeah.
With great characters. That's also like a very hard thing to do. Like there's
Yeah.
no like absolute villains there. They're just like try to do the best for they try to like
Mhm.
do the best thing in their mind, which I think it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
good movie. Well, that's the conclusion. We
That's
enjoyed
the
watching it.
conclusion.
Good movie. Yeah.
Thanks for listening, folks. If you made it this far, we really appreciate it. And please like, share, and subscribe. Also, leave a comment down below if you if you'd like to, and we will try to do our best to read those comments. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, let us know that as well. All right. I guess that's it, right, Chief? Anything
Yeah,
else
that's
to
all. I've got
Okay.
nothing to add. So I'll see you guys next time.
All right. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.